Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about cost optimization and how can you manage your spend and put your cost on track. My name is Raven. I'm a principal technologist based out in Sydney, and with me today I have Ben.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm the cost optimization pillar lead from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you.
Cheers, Ben. So Ben and I focus on helping customers become more efficient on AWS by managing their costs and provide them with guidance and best practices to try to be more efficient, gain visibility of their cost, and put it on track. Throughout the session, we have multiple practical examples to walk you through what you need to do in order to reduce your cost. And we will also talk about a couple of tools that will help you start your cost optimization journey with us today. Most of the tools we're going to talk about are free of charge unless we stated something else. All right, so we'll start with the voice of the customer. So we heard your challenges about cost and usage, and we compiled some of the most asks from customers, which is how can I be cost efficient without delaying or slowing down my teams? How can I manage my cost? How can I get visibility? How can I reduce my bill? And we have customers come to us and say, well, I don't care. Just tell me what is the low-hanging fruit that I can implement today and reduce my bill. And other customers who have advanced in their cloud optimization journey tell us, all right, so I need to right-size my fleet. How can I do that without impacting performance or user experience? And the most common one is, well, I have a meeting next week with my financial team. So I need to understand my bill and how can I explain the spike there and what I'm going to do about it. So if any of these questions rings a bell, you are in the right session. There are a lot of questions, and we're going to go through them today and guide you through how you're going to answer these. All right, so with these questions and feedback, let's talk about our agenda. We're going to talk about the cost optimization design principles and best practices from the well-architected perspective. After that, we'll talk about the strategies that you need to implement and the tool you need to leverage to be able to take action and reduce your bill. We will also demo some of these tools today with you. And before we all go, we'll give you some takeaways so you can start your journey today. All right, so let's begin with a well-architected framework. So AWS Well-Architected Framework consists of 6 pillars. Apart from the recently added pillar, sustainability, we have security, performance, reliability, cost optimization, and operational excellence. Each of these pillars has some design principles, which are goals. It gives you a goal and a target that you need to do to be able to be well-architected. And it also has, each of the pillars has best practices, which is a prescriptive guidance, what exactly you need to do and what steps you need to take to be able to achieve these goals or the design principles. Incorporating these pillars into your workload will produce the most efficient, reliable, resilient workload, so please do go and read them and try to incorporate them in your design. Our focus today is on cost optimizations, so let's check it out. All right, the cost optimization pillar focuses on helping customers run workloads to deliver business value to their consumers at the lowest cost possible. The workload is considered cost optimized if it achieved 5 goals or 5 design principles, the one on the screen. One is you got to implement cloud financial management. Second, you got to be able to analyze your cost and attribute it. Third is to have a consumption model or implement a consumption model. Fourth is you should really stop spending on undifferentiated heavy lifting, either spending money or effort. And the last one is measure overall workload efficiency. And by that, we don't mean the cost of the service, we mean the total cost of ownership. Because the total cost of ownership, it's not just the service dollar value, it also the time and effort your engineer put through to go through certain tasks. And let me give you an example. Let's say your AWS cost went up last year by 20%. Can you correlate this cost to a business value? Have you, for example, noticed an increase of number of new users on your website? Or have you started to see more booking, or booking and reservation went up by 10%? Then you're practically not talking about costs here, you're talking about investments. All right, so now we know what are the 5 goals. Let's see how can we achieve them. All right, there are 4 things that we need to do, and the 5th is we keep doing the 4 things. And we're going to talk about each of these focus area or best practices section that we'll go through today. So let's begin with expenditure and usage awareness. We need to understand our cost and what drives it to be able to manage it. So in real estate, we always say location, location. In cost optimization, it's visibility, visibility, visibility. This is the name of the game. You gotta understand the cost across your organization and have insight to be able to manage it and reduce it. And there are a couple of things that help you do that. One is to configure detailed billing report, and you can do that by enabling hourly granularity in Cost Explorer. And that will create you core file or cost and usage report. So both Cost Explorer and core file are the most accurate data source for your usage and your cost. And it will provide you with the pattern throughout the entire year. The second point is you gotta decommission unused resources. If you design your workload to do an automated decommissioning of resources, you're already reducing the workload cost over its lifetime. And the way to do this, you gotta create a standardized process to decommission these resources. And a tool there to use is autoscaling, AWS autoscaling. It's free of charge. So the autoscaling group will scale up when you need the capacity and when you are under load, and scale down and decommission these resources when you don't need them. Another way of doing this as well is by creating or writing custom APIs using SDKs or APIs. All right, so the third thing is governance. And as any system, you have to create goals and targets for your team. And we do encourage you to establish what we call business value KPIs. Meaning, I've mentioned earlier, if you have a workload that increased by 20% last year, let's say it's a web server that hosts your website, can you look into context around this cost? Can you understand why it has increased? Is that because the number of reservations went up by 12%? So that 20% increase in cost correlates to this 12% increase in reservation or number of new users. Couple of business key metrics is transaction per user, could be, or number of reservation, could be another one. And last thing before I move is we gotta assign an organizational meaning to our cost and usage by using tagging. So what tags does is it assigns a business or technical value to cost and usage. Things like cost center or certain teams or certain projects. Once you assign these tags, it will give you the visibility and insights that you need to be able to drill down into your costs. All right, I've just mentioned tagged, and I can't really stress enough how critical this is. Because as we mentioned, visibility is a key thing for us to understand cost and usage and get on the top of it. And that's one of the key elements to help you gain a granularity, visibility into and insight into your cost. So it is easy to implement. What you need to do is go to AWS Billing, and then go to Cost Allocation tag, enable tagging, and activate the tags that you're interested in. There's heaps of tagging there, as you can see. Just see what is relevant to your business and go and activate it. Once you activate it, you can go to Cost Explorer or the core file cost and usage report and do filtering on these tags, either by cost center, either by environment, or by a project. Tag is a care per value, which has an attribute that you decide and a description for that attribute you've chosen. One thing here is, what we've noticed customers do is using business tags, like cost center, like teams, which is fair enough. They're trying to align AWS bill into their traditional financial dimensions within their organization. And there's nothing wrong about that. What I want to point out is there's also technical tags, things like production or development. So you're talking about environment rather than cost center. Or you can also implement tags for security and other reasons. Implementing a tagging strategy is critical to give you an insight that you need to your bill, and critical to give you these filtering options when we talk about certain projects or certain application. All right, moving to another tool. So I've mentioned visibility is the name of the game, and I quickly mentioned AWS Explorer. So AWS Explorer is quite friendly user interface. You can go there and check your costs throughout an entire year, overall the entire organization, and it can also, you can use it to drill down to certain account or certain region, certain service, per month, per week, or even hourly. Cost Explorer has multiple features, things like rightsizing, when you right-size your fleet. Another key feature is forecasting. And the reason I want to point out this is customers always come to us and say, forecasting is very important, but it's really hard to implement. I cannot make sure that my budget or my forecast for the rest of the year will be adhered to or even accurate. Coming back from this feedback, AWS built forecasting engine and embedded into Cost Explorer to use machine learning, analyze the usage and cost, and provide you with recommendation and accurate forecasting view for the next year. So, another thing to point out here is Cost Explorer is designed not just for technical folks, by the way, it's also designed for non-technical, so management and finance team. All right, moving to another ask or feedback from customers, which is how can I set up budget for my teams? How can I get notified if they are about to exceed these budgets so I don't get a bill shock? So AWS released AWS Budget, which allow you to create custom budgets and alerts so you can receive an email or SMS when your team's about to either exceed their budget or even the forecasted budget. It also can send you notification if your reservation capacity, either RIs or saving plans, and we'll talk about them in a minute, has dropped below certain thresholds. So you understand how your teams are going against your budget. The other thing it's also very cool that provide you with, it's able to analyze the historical information. So you understand how these portfolio teams are tracking against their budget even historically. All right, going back to your feedback about bill shock. How can you avoid that? AWS got that feedback and designed cost anomaly detection. What cost anomaly detection does, it goes and analyzes your usage and cost, including your kind of natural growth and also seasonal trend in your usage, and create a pattern. Any anomalies against this pattern, it picks it up and it sends you a notification. So you can act immediately rather waiting for the build that comes next month. How it does do that? It uses machine learning and a couple of modules, rule-based modules, in the background to analyze this usage and cost and come up understanding your trend really well and pick up on these anomalies to send it to you. All right, so let's sum up the first best practices section or focus area. To successfully be able to have visibility and cost awareness, you gotta understand where your cost coming from, and you have to have a visibility and granularity. And in order to do that, we said we're gonna use Cost Explorer for visibility or core file. We're gonna use tagging to give us more granular filtering. We're also gonna use cost anomaly detection to stop any bill shocks. And we were gonna set up budgets to our teams using AWS budgets. And with that, we answered multiple questions in this section: how to set budget, how to stop bill shock, and how to gain visibility. Let's move to the next section. Right, so the next section of the best practices or focus area is how you're gonna choose the most cost-effective resources for your workload. And this is because choosing the right service that provides you with the balance between your organizational need and technical environment is critical if you got the balance right between the requirement in the most cost-effective ways. And there's a couple of things that you can do to help you there. One of the first thing is you gotta embed cost into the design phase. So don't get your team or educate your team not to go and design, build, and run, then come and optimize. There's a long cycle there that they wasted a lot of money. Had you embed cost from the designing phase or the build phase, you would have saved yourself a lot. All right. The second thing here is select the right pricing model. And AWS offer multiple price model to match organizational need when it comes to financial requirements and also usage pattern. So AWS offer the on-demand, which most customers use by default. There's also reservation capacity in form of RIs or saving plans at a discounted cost over the on-demand, and spot, which steep discounted price over on-demand because it uses the spare capacity of EC2. So choosing the right purchase option is one of the key strategies to reduce your costs right away. All right, data. What we often see from customers is they tend to forget about data transfer and the cost they incur because of that. So AWS has multiple solutions when it comes to networking for different networking scenarios to try to help you get on the top of your data transfer cost and actually understand what is the different option you got and what is the best use case for you. So try to leverage that. The next thing is, we talked about the right service in the beginning, right? Now we're going to talk about the type and size and number. And in order for you to decide how many instances you're going to use or what is the size or the type, you got to do some testing. So you got to get the technical requirement from your application, things like the CPU utilization or memory utilization, and go and try to match it to the right instance type or right resources. And then you're going to do some testing to prove your assumption is correct and change if it's not. So practically, you are creating a benchmark. And that takes a lot of time and effort. So AWS got this feedback as well from customers and released Compute Optimizer, AWS Compute Optimizer, to take all of this heavy lifting from you. So what does the Compute Optimizer offer? Compute Optimizer using machine learning in the background to go through your resources and define what is the characteristics of that workload based on a dozen of characteristics it has next to the machine learning. So things like how is the application's memory intensive or CPU intensive, the access pattern for the disk. And based on these characteristics, it go and test that against heaps of other hardwares, then recommend you what is the best instance type, size, and number for your application or for your resource. The recommendation is not just the size and type, it also show you how much you're going to save in a dollar value and a percentage. So you're aware, have you moved to this instant type or size, how much value you're going to get out of it. The other thing Compute Optimizer also do, it's analyze performance. So let's say you've accidentally under-provisioned a resource, and it's heavily utilized, it cannot cope up with the load. Compute Optimizer will pick this up and then go and test what is these characteristics against the hardware and come back and recommend you a different instant type or size so you can resize these resources and don't impact your consumers. So practically here, we answered the question of how can I right-size my workload without impacting performance or consumer experience. One thing to note is Compute Optimizer support EC2, EBS volumes, and Lambda function. Cool. So we talked about EC2 purchase options. And we said there is multiple options there that AWS offer. And it's quite critical to get this option correct because it significantly can reduce your cost. The first one is the on-demand. And this is pay-as-you-go with no commitment. And it's quite a good use case for any workload that fluctuates. Then the reserved capacity, which comes in forms of reserved instant or saving plans. And this is where you're going to commit over 1-year term or 3-year term. And in exchange for that commitment, AWS will offer you up to 70% discount over the on-demand price. And the best use case for the reserved capacity is always on workload. Things like your web servers that doesn't shut down or some of the databases that you don't shut it down. The last one is Spot. And Spot is pay-as-you-go, similar to the on-demand with no commitment. The difference here is you can get up to 90% discount over the on-demand price. I'll repeat again, up to 90% discount over the on-demand price because you use the spare capacity of EC2. Sounds interesting. So let's talk more about Spot and how can you leverage it. All right. So Spot is another way of running your compute resources at a steeply discounted price because you're using the spare EC2 fleet. And what does it do here is it comes sometimes, because it's spare capacity, AWS or EC2 can claim back this EC2 again. So it's best for workloads that non-critical and can easily handle interruption into the EC2 if it becomes unavailable because it was claimed back. So things like patch jobs or any really operations that it doesn't get impacted if it had to restart or resume. Right, so I've mentioned the 2 minutes notification if EC2 wants to claim this instance back. All right, so what are you going to do about that? Because it's quite discounted price, and you should really consider it. So there are 2 things. One is you got to check your workload quite often to save as much state as possible. The other thing is try to avoid the instant type and sizes that at a high risk of being interrupted. And you're going to ask me, well, how do I know that? So AWS published on our public website the historical interruption of different instance sizes and type in different regions. All right, so what is the best use cases for Spot? It's usually best for workloads that is stateless, that can its operation handle interruption without getting disturbed. So it's okay to resume or restart. And you can find this in some containers workloads, batch workloads, machine learning, and some CI/CD pipeline as well. We do recommend you to assess your application and workload against Spot and try to come up with Spot-first strategy for net new workloads. All right, so do you remember when we said we should really stop spending money and effort on undifferentiated heavy lifting? And by that, I meant managed service versus self-managed. Because when we measure the cost of the service, it's not about the dollar value of the service, it's about the total cost of ownership. How much time and effort have your engineers had to spend on tasks that we like to call it undifferentiated heavy lifting, things like batching or provision infrastructure. If you have a requirement in your organization to run relational database on VMware, or maybe an orchestration layer on VMware, then it's fine. AWS offers that as well. But we recommend you as much as possible to try to use managed service so you can save your engineers time and effort to focus on what is matter for your application and your consumers. All right, so let's sum up the cost-effective resources. To successfully have a most cost-effective resources, you gotta consider leveraging managed services versus self-managed services. You gotta look into Compute Optimizer to be able to right-size your workloads and don't spend money on over-provisioning. You could also use AWS purchase options, different purchase options like reservation or Spot, which will significantly reduce your cost. And with that, we answered multiple questions, which is how can I be agile and cost-effective or cost-efficient? And also, how can I right-size my workload without impacting performance and user experience? Moving to the third focus area or best practice, which manage demand and supply resources. When you are in the cloud, you pay only for what you use. So you don't really need to waste money on resources that you don't utilize or don't leverage. And you gotta take advantage of the elasticity of the cloud. So for you to be able to manage demand and supply, there is multiple things. One is you gotta first manage the demand, and there's 2 ways to do this. One is throttling, and by throttling we mean if your resources have a retry capability, it's best to use throttling because what throttling does, it goes to the request and say, well, my resource is not available now, try again later. And you can implement throttling by using API gateways. Another thing is buffering. And buffering is practically stacking up the requests in a queue. So it gives your application its time to process these requests as its own speed. And you can use SNS or Kinesis to be able to use queuing or buffering. Another thing is dynamic supply. So how are you going to manage dynamic supply? The key thing here is you're going to leverage the elasticity of AWS. So one thing is there is demand-based supply where you don't really know exactly what is coming towards you. It goes up and down, so it's based on the demand on your workload. To do that, the best to manage the demand and supply is to use auto-scaling group, because it can scale up if there is a demand or load and scale down again when there is nothing. Another thing is timely-based supply, where you know in advance you need certain workloads at a specific time frame. Could be business hours from 9 to 5. And to be able to manage the supply or time-based supply, you gotta use auto-scaling, because you can have a schedule there in auto-scaling group to say, I need to start at 8 o'clock before my employees start at 9, for example, and decommission and scale down by 6 p.m. So another one as well next to auto-scaling is Instance Scheduler, which you can also create custom schedule to spin up resources certain time and spin them down again. Do you remember when we start with the voice of the customer and there is a question or ask there about, give me the low-hanging fruit. I want to reduce my bill now. And this coming section, it's all about that. All right. So the things that you don't want to do, you don't want to spend money on any idle instance that's hardly in use or not being used at all. And to be able to do that, you got to use EC2 Instance Scheduler, where you go and create a custom scheduler to say, I want resources to spin up certain time or under certain capacity and spin down, decommission under certain time. What customers don't realize is we have in the week 168 hours. Out of this 168, 108 weekends and night. So practically for non-production workload, why you would need to run these workloads that additional 108 hours? Because your work week should be 40, add to that 20 hours in the beginning and a little bit late for folks who start a little bit late. You don't really need to spend any money beyond that for non-critical or non-production workloads. So you gotta use Instance Scheduler to shut down your non-production workload, either development environment or UAT environment, during nights and weekends, and spin them up again when you need them. I've put a barcode here for you. It will take you to a website, AWS website, where you can download a CloudFormation template and you can set up the schedule. It's quite easy to implement, so the complexity is quite low. It takes less than an hour, as actually hour is quite stretched, I would say. And the amount of reduction in your bill could be significant. All right, another one. The other important cost optimization lever I want to share with you is clean up the underutilized resources. So we talked before about Compute Optimizer and how it can provide you a recommendation because it monitors the resources and tell you this is underutilized or overutilized or oversized, so this is the right size or type. This is another tool that can do that, but on a larger scale. Compute Optimizer support EC2, EBS volume, and Lambda, and it continues to support more services as we go. Trusted Advisor covers also databases, and it's able to get you all of these underutilized resources and put it for you in a report and tell you how it is under-consumed or underutilized and why. If you haven't heard about Trusted Advisor before, It's a tool from AWS, free tool that can monitor your system and provide you recommendation under different pillars, 5 pillars exactly: security, cost optimization, performance, and service limits. So I highly recommend you to use it. It's aligned to your support level, by the way. So it depends if you have enterprise support or business support, you will get more or a full list of the checks. Lower support or different support models like developer will get a little bit less checks. And here is a barcode for it as well. So we covered the EC2, which is the highest used service in AWS, the compute. Now let's talk about storage. So AWS created different storage tiers to help customers use the right tier for their usage, or what is the best use case for their usage. But unfortunately, what happens is customers tend to forget about that and use the default, which is the S3 standard. And that is the highest priced tier in S3 standard. However, they might not use it. So we create these tiers and try to recommend it to customers, and the feedback we got is, well, we love the tiers, it's going to save us a lot of money, but it's really hard for us to understand the access pattern of our objects. We don't know if these objects being accessed frequently, so I need a hot storage, so I need S3 standard with its price, or it's not being accessed at all and I need to archive it, or it's accessed infrequently. So we got this feedback and we created Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering. Once you enable it, it's analyze the access pattern of your objects in the S3 bucket and automatically move these objects in the relevant tier. So you don't really need to do any analysis. And you're going to save tremendous amount of money by doing this, because believe it or not all of the files that you have or stores get access all the time. You don't need this tier. It's infrequent access, or it can be even archived. The same concept, by the way, applies to EFS, which is Elastic File System. So if you use EFS as well, you can leverage the same concept through lifecycle management and move the object of EFS to an infrequent EFS tier. So let's sum up this section. So we talked about how we manage demand and supply by using the elasticity of the cloud, mainly autoscale and group. We also talked about some of the most kind of low-hanging fruit that is quite simple to implement, but has a huge return on investment. And with that, we, I guess, answered one of my last questions here, what is the low-hanging fruit? And let me hand over to my peer, Ben, to go through the last focus area.
Thank you, Rowan. All right. That was a bit much, actually. Now we will talk about the last best practice area of the cost optimization pillar, which is practicing cloud financial management. And there are multiple best practices in this area as well. But before deep diving into this, what is CFM and why it is essential? CFM, by the way, which stands for Cloud Financial Management. CFM, by the way, Cloud Financial Management, is the process of identifying, measuring, monitoring, and optimizing the cloud cost. Organizations have regular checks, processes, or training for security, right? So we should approach the CFM within the same way. So let's deep dive. First, establishing cost optimization function. In other words, functional ownership. Set up a team. You can call it cloud operations team, cloud business team, FinOps team, CFM, doesn't matter. But this team should be responsible for establishing and managing the cost awareness in your organization. This team should be also responsible for cost management and cost optimization activities. There are certain set of skills required for this team. They need to understand technology, they need to understand finance, and they need to understand the business requirements. Executive sponsorship is a must here, not only for escalation point of contact, but also for cost-effective cloud consumption. Establishing a partnership. Establish a partnership between the technology and the finance stakeholders. Involve these stakeholders into any cost and usage discussions at all stages during your cloud journey. This will allow you to establish trust within your organization as well. Establish budgets and forecasts. Look at how much you spend last 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, and how much you're going to spend for upcoming 3 months or 6 or 12 months. You can use Cost Explorer to analyze this. And think about your business requirements, that your consumption within the Cost Explorer aligns with your business requirements. Based on that analysis, set up your budgets with using AWS budgets. Set up your thresholds and get notifications as well. And you can use cost anomaly detection, as Rowan said, my colleague said. You can reduce the surprise costs. Establishing cost-aware process and culture. When your engineers plan any change in your cloud environment, ask these questions. What is the business requirement? What is the business outcome? And what will be the impact in terms of cost, whether it's going to increase or decrease? So these kind of questions will actually help you to establish cost-aware culture within your organization. AWS release new services or new features for the existing services from time to time. So you can follow these announcements from AWS News, what's news on AWS, and also AWS blogs as well. Following these announcements will give you an opportunity to optimize some of those opportunities in your existing workload. Not to reduce your cost, but at the same time will give you opportunity to improve the performance as well. Report and notify cost and usage. Use AWS tools to get notifications, such as AWS budgets, cost anomaly detection, and also create meaningful business reports and use dashboards. You can use AWS dashboards or you can use third-party dashboards, doesn't matter. But make sure your stakeholders can access these dashboards at any time. And quantify business value for cost optimization. When you get cost optimization opportunities, quantify, elaborate what are those cost optimization opportunities and why they are important for your organization. Try to quantify the business value. What will be the return of investment for those opportunities? This will gain more buy-in for your stakeholders. With that way, your stakeholders will prioritize the cost optimization activities and also follow your recommendations as well. So if you have CFM capability in place, that's great. You can still look at our journey, CFM journey, as a blueprint. If you don't have any, if you're planning to start from somewhere, this is a perfect opportunity. You can take these sample blueprints. Let's start and let's keep it simple. First, CFM ownership. Identify an owner. It could be individual or it could be a team, doesn't matter, but make sure someone owns the CFM activities. Organizational partnership. Make sure there's a partnership between the finance and technology stakeholders. They communicate. Create cadence calls and create bidirectional communication channels. Enable cost allocation. Rowan said 3 times visibility, 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 right? I want to say one more time, visibility. So tag everything where possible and use cost allocation tasks. Categorize meaningfully for your organization and also segregate environments with using multiple AWS accounts. Cost visibility, you can use AWS tools to track your cost and usage information, such as Cost Explorer, AWS Budgets, Billing Console, and other tools as well. Cost optimization. Consider reviewing cost optimization recommendations from multiple sources, such as reserved instance or saving plans recommendations or Compute Optimizer recommendations, or even from the Trusted Advisor cost optimization recommendations. Cost forecasting and monitoring. Use Cost Explorer to review your past and forecasting cost usage and make sure they align with your business requirements as well. Last but not least, continuous education. Organize education and training opportunities for your organization. That will improve the cloud skills for your organization. To summarize what we discussed for the cloud financial management best practice areas, we talk about ownership, we talk about establishing partnership, we talk about cost tracking and visibility. The CFM will allow you to have the discipline that will deliver results for your organization. AWS cost categories. Sometimes you may need to group your cost and usage information in meaningful groups, such as how much your cost for department, how much your cost for business units or projects or workload, right? So to do that, we can use cost categories. When you create cost categories, you can use those categories, groups, in Cost Explorer, in budgets, cost and detection, or even with the cost and usage reports as well. So look at this diagram here. Your organization may have multiple teams, and one of the team is Team A, and Team A looks after production, staging, and dev environments. And each environment has multiple AWS accounts, multiple projects, multiple cost allocation tags, right? So let's see this in practice in the next demo. Now, I will use Tag Editor to get all my EC2 instances from AP Southeast 2, which is Sydney region. I will get the EC2 instances and associated tags for those EC2 instances and manage the tags, all the tags at the same time, instead of doing that manually, one by one. It's time consuming. So Tag Editor allows me to see all the tags associated with them, and I'm going to change cost center 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3, 3, 3. There's a reason why I'm doing that, which I will use in couple seconds. Let's apply the changes. Perfect. All my instances have 3, 3, 3 cost center tag right now. Let's jump on to the cost categories under the billing console. When you click the cost categories, you can see my previously created cost categories. Let's create a new one. I'm going to give a name which will be meaningful so that I can understand when I use it in the other tools. I'll keep it simple. I'm not going to complicate it here. I will look back period. I'm going to use that one, and I will apply the rules for the previous 12 months. Let's click next. Keep the rule type regular this time. I'm going to create two rules. My first rule, and there will be multiple dimensions, which means multiple conditions. I'm going to select my first primary account, and also after that, I will use second dimension, which I will use cost allocation tags. Cost center, 333, which I previously changed. And my third dimension in this first rule is, I will keep it simple again here. I will use the service this time, and my team A looks after ECS. ECS is one of the AWS managed container service, Elastic Container Service. In my second rule, I'm not going to create multiple dimensions. I will use one, and I will select my other two AWS accounts. So the sky is the limit. You can create multiple advanced rules and dimensions here. Let's keep it simple. Click next and create cost category. After that, it will take some time to apply the rules on your cost and usage information. Depends on the complexity and your consumption history. Instead of waiting that, I will show you my previously created cost category. Let's use it in the Cost Explorer right now. This is the fun part. So when I go to the Cost Explorer, I can select my historical consumption, right? 3 months, 6 months, whatever the period. And once I do that, I can group them at the top, as you can see, group by service, group by account, group by region. But I would like to group them by the cost categories. I created CC Reinvent 22. I'm going to select that. And once I select it, I can see the grouping here. But what if you have multiple cost categories, which is a reasonable scenario? This time, I would like to filter them. So to do that, on the right-hand side, click the cost categories, select your cost category rules 1 and 2, or other rules and categories if you want. Once you apply, you will see the filtered results here. Again, I will group them by the cost category, which will be much more meaningful for me right now. Here you go. I can see rule cost for September and rule 1 and 2 cost for October now. Customers who have shared resources or multi-tenant applications have different challenge. When you look at this diagram, we have multiple customers, tenant 1, 2, 3, and they're accessing the same resources. How are we going to track which customer consumed which resource and how much it cost me? Especially for chargeback, it is difficult, right? So for these kind of scenarios, we can use AWS Application Cost Profiler. Application Cost Profiler gives ability to customers to identify and isolate tenant-based consumption for those AWS resources. Maybe it's difficult for you to imagine right now, but let's see in practice in the next demo video. To use application cost profiler, I created S3 bucket first. In the US East 1 region, I created reports folder, suffix, so that ACP can dump the reports into this folder. Okay? Let's jump onto the application cost profiler and manage configuration here. Once I click manage configuration, I will just keep it simple, report name, a description, and I am going to use S3 bucket that I created here and the suffix, which means folder in the S3 bucket. In terms of time frequency, I'm selecting the both, not daily, not monthly, but both of them. And the format of the output, I select CSV here. Click configure. Once you click configure, ACP creates dummy file in this bucket just to confirm that you have permission. And to test this ACP, I created very simple application. And it has API gateway, DynamoDB, and Lambda function. Okay? How does it look like? I have multiple customers here. They're accessing to the API gateway, which has Lambda function and DynamoDB. Simple. Let's generate some traffic. Let's generate some data. So I'm going to use PowerShell, doesn't matter, automation script, and look at the tenant ID 456. That is very important here. With using tenant ID 456, I am generating the traffic for my application. So how my traffic data looks like. Let's jump onto the S3 bucket now, go to the imports. I want to show you how the traffic looks like right now. Instead of downloading the file, I will query directly on the S3 bucket by selecting the file, and then I will use very simple SQL query to see the content of the file. Once I click SQL query, it will show me the contents. Beautiful. Let's click on the formatted tab. It will be more friendly. And here I can see what's my application, sample application, my tenant ID, remember 456 I used, that's the identifier, and that tenant consumption of the resource, start time and end time, and which resource was in use. So far it is good, but is it enough? No, because I want to see how much it cost me, right? That's what I'm looking for. Let's find out how can I see this with the ACP report. Jump onto the S3 bucket again and open the reports by the month and date format. Let's go to the last one. And this is my report, ACP report, application cost profiler. I don't want to download it. I want to query directly on the S3 bucket here. Let's run very simple SQL query here again to see the content. And voila, I can see tenant-based consumption here. My tenant 456 access to multiple AWS resources and API calls and usage types and which resource IDs and what's the time and how much it costs me. That includes credits and saving plans if you have. You don't have to calculate manually, which takes a lot of time. It's already calculated by the ACP. That's the beauty of this service. Now I can use this report and make meaningful dashboards with using QuickSight or any tool you have and show it back to the organization or to my customers as well. That is it right now. To summarize, we talk about, I hope this information today has been helpful. Just a couple of takeaways before we close it here. In the beginning, we talk about the pillars of a well-architected framework, and we focused on cost optimization today. So we talk about the design principles that you could use as a goal or a direction to iterate your workload and a practice towards. To help you to get there, we encourage you to consider the 5 focus areas of the cost optimization, as well as leverage the extensive tools and the services around cost management, such as some that we have discussed today. Thank you so much for your attendance. I hope you enjoyed the session and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.